Tell me I have to change. All right, so that's starting. View my waiting room. Admit all. All right. Well, I'm gonna move it over here in a second. I'm gonna move it over. Here in a second. It's just because I usually wait. Yeah, usually I wait for the Zoom to actually come
I
up.
love getting jumped in the back of my head every time.
Well, the funny thing is usually I try to do it. Well, sometimes I try to do it before I turn on Zoom, sometimes afterwards. There is a huge lag in terms of the little screen that's over here that shows me what this picture actually shows. Zoom's actually faster. And it's like, I don't understand how me running a cord from here to here is slower than me bouncing it off of the internet and back, but whatever, it works. Let's see, we got a few people in here. A little spotlight. Well, also, oh, looks like those came on. Excellent. From there, I wanted to go. This is good. I know it's in here. I've been running into this a lot with Google stuff. You guys run into where you're like, you'll search for an email or something that you know you have in your email and it won't pop up. And then you go and you find that specific email, you search for it again and it will. That's been driving me nuts. It's like, I can't keep track of what stuff's where. All right, so things I need to show you. First off, one, I hope everyone is doing well today. Let's move it over here. Amazon.com. I want to show you guys something. So I did something that's funny. I spent $7 on. I want to go into, let's first share this. You guys can see what I'm doing because I want to show you guys something funny, but it also relates to what we're talking. Share this is screen one, boom. All right, so we want to go into set orders because it'll be in one of those. You're making me sign in again. That's me. Okay. Password. I think that's it. Yes. Don't take my password. Come here. I just want to see my movies. Show me my movies. Take me a moment. I just want to watch movies. You thought I wouldn't do this at home. Video versions. There it is. Here we go. You guys ever seen the movie Idiocracy? Yes, I've talked about this a few times now. If you've not seen it, we'll get a quick. Okay. That's hilarious. Of course, what's really funny is there's already a typo right here. I watched the movie over the weekend. It's only 500 years in the future. So it's like Idiocracy, you got typos in it already. That's hilarious. All right, we're going to start this over at the beginning. And I'm going to show you something hilarious. The reason why it's so hilarious is as it was going, it literally is hilarious. Let's skip a few seconds ahead. Here we go.
Fastest reproduced in greater numbers than the rest, a process which had once favored the noblest traits of man now began to favor different traits. Most science fiction of the day predicted a future that was more civilized and more intelligent. As time went on, things seemed to be heading in the opposite direction, a dumbing down. How did this happen? Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence, with no natural predators within the herd began to simply reward those the intelligent become an endangered species.
Having kids is such an important decision.
We're just waiting for the right time. It's not something you want to rush into, obviously.
No way.
Hold on. We'll stop this for a quick second. Because I'll show you something. IQ 130 plus 140 plus. What that makes them is IQ is on this curve we've mentioned in other classes. Average is 100. One standard deviation is 15 points. You're 2 points out. You are smarter than 99% of people in this world. That's how smart they are. not exactly high number. It's also a fun game with numbers, right? If you have an IQ of 115, that puts you smarter than 85% of people, right? That means you're pretty smart. What does that mean? In a town of 16,000 people, if you're smarter than 85 out of 100, let's make an even number of 1,000. That means you have how many people you're competing with, how many people are smarter than you, right? Numbers are a hell of a thing. When you have a lot of them, it's like these small numbers don't really matter because what you see still scales up. But we're talking about scale here. Watch this. So you get to see them. They're thinking about kids.
Jimmy damn kids. Thought you was on the pill or some shit.
Oh, no.
That's the thing.
Courtney. There's no way we could have a child now. Not with the market the way it is now.
That just wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, but there must be, you like something here?
They not to me, baby. Oh, that's perfect.
Well, we finally decided to have children, and I'm not pointing fingers, but it's not going well.
And this is helping.
I'm just saying that before I have in vitro, maybe you should be willing
It's
to.
always me, right?
Not my sperm count.
Bad language. We're gonna skip that a little bit forward. He's gonna tell all of these women what he's going to do later. We're gonna skip ahead a little bit. 5 years later from this,
Doctors Krinsky and Altshuler. Cleavon should regain full reproductive function.
basically what happened is Cleavon, the dad, he got in an accident, tore open his genitalia, and they fixed it, so he's having more kids. That's modern science work.
Get your hands off that junk.
Unfortunately, Trevor passed away from a heart attack while masturbating.
That's enough of that one. You see where this is going, right? And so we'll skip ahead just a couple more. This is 310. Skip to, yeah, there you go. Let's see if it'll play that without.
Well, those of you with any seem to notice. 2005 in a military base just up.
Right? That's what we're playing. We're playing a numbers game with reproduction. We're doing it every day, all the time. Right? Consider whatever you want to. You should consider as much as you can. Information is very useful. Realize that game's still being played. Right? Something to think about. Right? Now we'll come back to that kind of thought and say, this movie is great, by the way. I was watching it again, and I'm probably going to use it in methods whenever we talk about qualitative stuff. I'm talking to you specifically. Because there's a great section there where he's talking about qualitative research and how to get in, how to get in well with close groups. Basically what it is, he's trying to recruit for this major military product. He's trying to recruit people that are expendable. So he went to Charlie. So it's like trying to get in well with the pimp. It's like, it's hilarious, but it's actually quite accurate for what you have to do in qualitative research. It's crazy. But I wanted to talk with you about a few things first. I already stopped the share. Good. This right here, last time when we were talking about numbers, that's where we left off last time. We'll talk a little bit about that, kind of help you frame that a little bit. So we were talking about the numbers that are out there, how there's say abortions, pregnancies, births, reproductive females, right? When we looked at the way that they report abortion numbers, whenever they report them, is they will give you the number of abortions that existed in a time period, the numbers of births that took place, the number of reproductive females that existed, and abortions took place. They won't give you the number of pregnancies there because that's an unknown number, right? You can kind of get a rough estimate what we did last time of how many known pregnancies if you add these two together, and then you take this number to get a rate, so you get abortions over. And when we did that, what number did we come to? Memory serves me as 188 over something like 1188. So you're talking basically 1200. You're talking greater than 15%, not quite 20%, right? 1 out of 5, somewhere between 1 out of 5 and 1 out of 10 That's not a good number. Right? To give you a, something to give you a little bit of perspective on that. How deadly is anorexia? Has the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric disorder. Up to 20% will die in 20 years. It is the most deadly behavioral disease that we have. They give you a good scale. Like, that's how big of a problem this is for our society, right? Not for any one individual, but as a societal level issue, it's like, yeah, that's pretty serious. For those of you online, I did not share this. Let me share that with you real quick. Here, share screen, screen one, boom, right here. Anorexia nervosa, highest mortality rate of any mental disorder. Why? 20% will die after 20 years. So that's a behavioral thing. Yes, it's psychiatric, but any type of behavior that results in a 20% death rate is a pretty severe one. The next one I want to say is also an easy one. What was bulimia had a really high one? No, anorexia had high. Bulimia, death rate. Next highest one's 3%. How much of a difference there is between those, right? How bad is this one? How bad is it? Okay. So we talked a little bit about this last time. This was the article I was looking for. Source is a little questionable, but the math is there. It says CNS. I imagine that's probably Christian or something. We'll scroll down. It's probably Christian News Network or some shit. Who knows? But here, they are using census data. So this is good data. You read back to the title. It says 36% of abortions abort Black babies. Yes. It's like, if you do this with demographics, you can get those rates pretty easily. They'll present them to you pretty straightforward. What you need to do is you need to intersect that with location, right? The big thing is location. Okay, although Black Americans support 13.4% of the population, 36% of abortions in 2015. So data. Here you go. There are 124,000 white abortions, 121 Black abortions. Difference of 3,000. Right? Scrolling down. Abortion rate was significantly higher. Of course, to get population there. Gives you a portion of Black birth. And a Black woman had abortion in 2015 was noticeably and disproportionately larger than white women. Yes, we got that. Here you go right here. In Georgia, they make up 32% of the populations and had 60% of abortions. So they were making up the bigger amount. In New York, 2015, more Black children were aborted than born. Want to follow that? Is it still on? They'll give you, right, so they'll just give you the links on the population. I'd have to scroll through that and look. But that is a true fact. So, that right there, in terms of arguments that we have for having this on the table, I think that one's that's the one that keys in that choice thing. So everyone talks about free choice. That's not choice. That doesn't make it very clear that that's not choice. I don't know. Okay. Basically what you need to see in this kind of context is that environment. Some environments are hostile to life, right? That's New York. When you start talking about hostility towards life, one of the underlying discussions related to this topic brought up in that video I showed you related to debate. Eugenics, right? Is it eugenics? Do I think that this is eugenics? Unknown, right? You got letters and stuff that you can put context to in either direction. Does that actually matter? No, it doesn't. Like, what one person thought whenever they were starting an organization matters jack for what the organization does, for what the entity does, right? You have a kid with the best of intentions, right? Say they don't follow your example, your rules, or any of those things. They become an adult, an independently operating person. Are you responsible for their criminal actions? No. They have freedom of choice. Organizations are like that too. Entities, any type of entity acts the same in that regard. So what does it do? We're talking about Planned Parenthood and that kind of stuff. Is it the? No. But are there massive racial issues associated with it? Yes. Where are they located? Right? Where are we gonna find the clinics that do this? If you look at the rates and the disproportions there, history here, that kind of stuff. It's like, is it doing that? Kind of. Right? Last time I talked to you about numbers. How many millions have been stopped in this process? How many millions of lives have been stopped? You're talking a lot. Is that what this is? Who knows? Is it doing it now? Kind of, sort of. You might want to watch that. Okay. How does it work? I didn't show you this video. I'm still showing the screen. I think this guy was replaced. Northam out of Georgia. 22. Yep. So he's no longer governor of Virginia. That's what it was, Virginia. Before I show him, I'm going to show you a different video. Just pop in my head. Question you should ask yourselves. Maybe you already are. We'll see what they say.
Our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question, you know, is it okay to still have children? And I mean, not just financially, because people are graduating with $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 worth of student loan debt. And so they can't even afford to have kids in a house, but also just this basic moral question, like what do we do? And even if you don't have kids, there are still children here in the world, and we have a moral obligation to them and to leave a better world for them. And this idea that if we just, you know, I've been working on this for X amount of years, it's like not good enough. Like we need a universal sense of urgency, and people are trying to like introduce watered down proposals that are frankly going to kill us.
Not necessarily wrong. My question about whether or not you should have children is always an interesting one. That's why I showed you that video from the movie. It's like, yeah, should you consider those things? Yes. There are people who don't. There are people who never will, right? When it comes to you yourselves, it's like another way of looking at it. Value, money. How much does it cost to raise a child to adulthood? Okay. You've probably seen a dollar figure for that, right? At some point, you've seen a very real dollar figure. It costs, on average, $1.2 million to raise a kid from birth to 18 years of age, or maybe college age, or some whatever bullshit they give you. It's all bullshit. Every number they give you is bullshit. The methodology they use to get to it, how they calculate it is very real. How it's used is what I'm saying is bullshit. right? People misuse it all the time. They'll see this figure and think that's a real number. It's like, yeah, no, that number is bullshit, right? How many different things can I add together that are associated costs with children to get to the point where I can see, okay, overall, from society standpoint, this is how much they cost. Now, how much do they cost you? How do they come up with those numbers? They'll include things like healthcare. That's probably one of the biggest ones right there, right? How much does that cost people? A lot. How much does it cost you if you're a family? One rate. How much does it cost if you have 2 kids? Another rate. How much does it cost if you have 3 kids? One rate. If you have 5 kids, it's like, does it change? Some do, some don't. Someone's a flat thing. It's like, once you've got a family on there, you got you, your spouse, and another person. Doesn't fucking matter how many people you had on there, right? You're gonna get that same rate. That number changes, right? How much does an actual person spend on it? Well, my oldest is 15. Until 2020, the most I ever made was 40. That's gross. That's not salary. That's not income. Net was more like 25. At that point in time, I already had 4 kids. There's 6 of us. Economy was a little bit different, so food was cheaper. That's probably the biggest thing, right? Didn't have much in the way of savings, living paycheck to paycheck. Where are we living? Right, a nice house, that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, we're living pretty good. How is that possible? This, right? The last time you were in your family home with your parents, say the last 3 times, how many times was it something one of your family members made that you ate? Not something you went out and bought, right? Probably more times made than bought, right? If you think about, okay, the last month I lived there, how many times I have home cooked meal versus bought shit? McDonald's to. That's what you start talking about. Being that this is a more rural community, I would think that you'd be very, very familiar with this fact. It's like, how expensive is life? Well, here it's not all that expensive. Why? Because you're not looking to have everybody do everything for you. Right? That's that. Don't use that. Okay. Yeah, so it's like this is one figure I've seen. You'll find them all over the place. They're literally, and each year they'll be a little bit higher because of the economy. But yeah, it's like this route right here, this thinking path that she's going down about the environment, the world, the costs, like important, shouldn't be the way you make your life. Your life is bounded in you, not on what everyone else thinks or what the world needs or things like that. It's like, what do you need to do to functionally survive? It's all about that hostility to life thing. Guess what? All of life will have hostility. Everything's trying to kill you at some point. If it doesn't, you'll find yourself there at some point, right? Go into any survival situation and watch as the entire world literally tries to kill you from just the damn wind, right? Just wind alone will kill you. Hypothermia, right? That's life. We had to figure out a way to keep it going. Here we go. This is the former governor of Virginia.
No exception. There was a very contentious committee hearing yesterday when Fairfax County Delegate Kathy Tran made her case for lifting restrictions on 3rd trimester abortions, as well as other restrictions now in place. And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion, even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you first thing I would say, this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about 3rd trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers. And this is why, Julie, that legislators, most of whom are men, by the way, shouldn't be telling a woman what she should and shouldn't be doing with her body.
And do,
We'll just stop there. Okay? I wrote a word up here. Hopefully I spelled it correct. I don't know. I just kind of guessed that. Resuscitated. Did we skip a step there? Say what happened. Baby be delivered, baby resuscitated. Like what? We skipped a step. What was it? What? Why do we need to resuscitate? Okay, that's one thing to think about. Two, they're saying infant, baby, they're not saying fetus anymore. Why? Because this is after delivery, right? Are we okay with letting a doctor and a mother or father and or all of the above choose to kill a baby? Because at this point, we are literally talking about it, right? Are we back at that? Is that back on the table? You kind of understand why he's no longer in that position, right? That was an active discussion point just 4 years ago, 4, right? Then there's the, got that. So yeah, they were talking about that. I need the eraser so I don't keep it. Then we have how it works out in practice. How does it actually work out in practice? Where do you live? That's going to dictate what that actually looks like, right? You get pregnant, you say that. I'm not just talking about females, where it's like you, significant others, that kind of thing. Couple, pregnancy, singles pregnancy, or it doesn't really matter. Where do you live? Why? Determine what kind of quality of medical care you're actually going to get. You go to an area that's poor, you're going to run into more of that Planned Parenthood stuff, right? That quality is not going to be the greatest because it's something you get what you pay for, right? Let's say normal doctor. If you're in an area that has a lot of Planned Parenthood, it's not just Planned Parenthood, abortion clinics, that kind of stuff. It's like, what's the likelihood that doctor also works in that clinic too, right? What's the likelihood that that doctor might recommend to someone that if they're not ready for it, you should go over there. It's a subtle, soft touch. Oh, you got one bad test back? I want to start considering this, right? How long before they've talked you into it? You always worry about people being talked into keeping their kids, because that's one that is concerned too. It's like you don't want to force someone to have a kid they don't want. That's a horrible situation. I don't want someone to raise some kid that they're going to hate their whole lives because, hey, guess what? You're right back in this class, right? We're dealing with them again on the other side. My oldest, we were really poor back then. I was making $23,000 in single income. So yeah, that was difficult. The doctor's home. I actually had a job who had insurance, so she got to go to the doctor. Not free, not government, not anything of that kind of stuff. So normal doctor, close to one of those areas. We get one test that had one number that was off. That's when that discussion came up. You should be thinking about this. You guys are young, you have your whole lives ahead of you. You know, you're already getting flags that this might not work out. You should probably start thinking about this right now. We have a clinic right over here. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You actually just brought that up to me. Like, I do have a strong opinion on it. Like, that's fine. All of you have a strong opinion. We didn't have a talk on it. Like, then we don't have to agree. That's good too. We shouldn't on some things. If we can live together, that's a great measure for society. But that's a different. That test, we went and got further testing. It's a bad test. One bad test, and they're getting that idea and playing with us. Now imagine you're vulnerable. Right? Okay. That's a problem. What else do I want to talk about? More recent kid. God, I got a lot of kids. It's nice. Fifth one, she's got genetic issues. Found that out. think you'd find that out with having 4 before that. It's all random. Like, the best I can think of is about like a stereo that's got knobs for every aspect of you. And someone just goes through and just randomly turns in whatever direction they want, kind of thing. That's what it seems like. But, significant genetic issues. That was found out beforehand. Is that doctor gonna bring that up? Okay. Is this issue serious enough more? It's okay. It's okay morally and ethically for you to consider it. It's okay morally, ethically for you to make that decision. The question is, when does this doctor start putting in that idea, right? Is it something as simple as there's gonna be a mild cognitive issue. Let's say your IQ, it's gonna be, let's say 90, very mild, right? Is that enough? Does it need to be 85? You have Down syndrome. How serious can that be, right? We were watching videos, they were talking about that one specifically. You could have a normal kid, completely cognitively normal, has that issue. And what have you just done? You've denied people, that person, that opportunity to live. It's like, that's a hell of a thing to try to figure out. If you're going to make those decisions, the proper questions you should ask don't have anything to do with that. I'll tell you about that in the statutes. Basically, what you should think about that people do is, this will kind of go along with whenever we get in the Sex Crimes Act. We have to have another talk about relationships. It's sad, but I literally have to have a conversation with everyone about relationships. We can have that entire conversation, right? You. Partner. Okay? You. Are you a good person? Yes or no? That's a judgment thing. Each of you will have to make that decision about yourselves. Don't let anyone else make that for you. And that's not even a hard no if you say, no, I'm a shit person. Okay? How many good people do you know that grew up born into shit situations, shit people? It's like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't axe those people out from the get-go, right? But something you should consider. Partner. He or she, are they a good person? Think about that. Negative. Basically, that gives you a good question, maybe. Do you both love each other equally? Oh. There you go. More important question. World. Not about resources, not about situations, is would the world be better if it had more or less of the both of you in it? That's a different question, isn't it? Right? There are more good people doing good things. Guess what? Everything gets better. Really simple. Okay? Consider these things, because what children are, depending on how you do it, they can be anything. They could be the thing that you hate, thing that brings you more pain and misery than anything else in the world. God, I hope they watch this video. I need to make them watch this video. I'm talking to you guys. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. From another point of view, what they are is this. That's a methods thing. We talked about abstract and concrete. You remember that, Hunter? That is abstract. What the hell is this? I don't fucking know. My heart feels weird. My stomach's kind of nauseous. You know, that kind of shit. Right? That's love. What are kids? They're something very real that comes out of that. If you do it right. Ooh. You can kind of use this a little bit. Play with those some scenarios that come together. Right? This is one discussion, a debate my wife and I had for a long time about this. Rape. You get pregnant from a rape. Like me and her talking. We're married. We're having a discussion. Like, what happens if this happens to you? Right? There are times that you're around, you go places and I'm not around. There are times that you're vulnerable. And there are people who will target you specifically just for the fact that you have a vagina, right? Okay? That happens, you get pregnant. What do you do? Is it an automatic yes or a no for an abortion? It's like, for some people, it's an automatic yes. It should be. It's also a question, right? What are we left with here? You might go over here. You got you. You got this person. And that sure sounds like a good argument for testing out this one. Nature versus nurture, right? Still, that'd be a hell of a thing. I wouldn't ever want to obligate anybody to make that choice any one way or another. I would want that to be you, right? So that's gonna be you. Whether it's this situation or anything that's innately negative related to it, that's the question that we're asking. Right? Are we stuck with whatever negative context is there? Can we change it? Right? All this is the opportunity. Maybe it's one we want, maybe it's one we don't. Figure that out. Not an easy thing. Anytime there's a negative situation, you need to ask yourself, what's going to come about as a result? Not at all easy. You're going to be able to separate yourself out from this and do this. Yeah, you got good groundwork to go ahead, right? If you can't, don't, right? Same thing with shitty people. Like, if you're gonna raise that kid, do nothing but be cruel to it for the next 15, 18 years of its life, you know, comes a certain level of cruelty that's like, yeah, that kid might wish he wasn't born or she wasn't born, and maybe you're gonna really fuck things up moving forward. That's a possibility. Not an inevitability. So it's one of those things. That's a choice. An honest one that needs to be made. That's one that needs to be made at the individual level. Next thing we need to talk about. I'm fine. Fuck that kid. Yeah. Ask yourself that question. Those series of questions. When you're ready. Don't rush. Don't delay either, because you don't want to be like the people on TV, the movie, in either direction, right? There's a lot of responsibility. Same time, between my brother and my sister, I have only 1/3 of the kids in our generation. So I'm getting outpaced. I'm keeping that in mind. I don't care anymore, but it's just something to do. That's the question asked. Not one about resources, not one about money, not one about standards of living, because you will figure that stuff out as you go. All this will change over the course of your life. Don't rush it, because it will make things more difficult. Don't delay, because that's a whole worse scenario. Not thinking. What did the overturning of Roe versus Wade?
Let states regulate it.
No longer at the federal level, it is now at the states. Thing to be in mind, keep in mind while moving this. Levels of the system. We're gonna talk about levels of the system. Here to here. We start getting closer to you getting all of the decision to yourself. Technically a good step, functionally mixed at best, right? Because now you're subject to whoever's right around you. That can be good or really, really bad, like we were just talking about in terms of abortions themselves. Wherever you're at, that's going to dictate a huge degree of what the problem is. Some states will put a lot of restrictions on. I think I've got it in here. Let's see if I've got it in there. Did I download the PowerPoint? Probably not, but we'll check. Downloads. No, this is. That's not, homicide 5, so, yeah. Then I'll pull up another states and show them to you by comparison. Okay, homicide. We'll skip over murder, we'll come back. Elements, degrees, murder, homicide, murder, murder, death inferred, manslaughter. I would have swore. There you go. There's the abortion ones. Procuring, submitting a soliciting to attempt to commit, concealing a stillbirth. Right? That's how regulated we are here. You administer one, felony. Attempt to, misdemeanor, yeah, goes jail. I don't see the word misdemeanor, but yeah, that's jail. You're talking less than 1 year, minor fine. Here, same kind of thing. Both of those things are illegal. You get into the statutes more themselves. I meant to grab the one, I thought I had it in that slide. That irritates me a little bit. I wanted to show you this one. Yeah, this is from 2019, 2020. Scroll down a little bit. Presented to the Senate Assembly explanation. Okay. This legislature finds that comprehensive reproductive health care, including contraception and abortion, is fundamental to health care. Fundamental access safe, legal abortions. Courts affirm this. May not place undue burdens, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Goal of medical regulation to be improved quality and availability. Legislature declares that is public policy. Productive decisions. I want to get a little bit further in. There's a specific word I'm looking for. All right. Homicides, abortion and related offenses. See, they're starting to go in. I think this word will get me closer to it. It's not the word I was looking for, because this is safe, legal abortions. It's like abortions aren't safe. Abortion is one of the safest medical procedures. That's a little bit of ideology stuff in there, right? You count it as a death or not. I'm trying to get into how it's handled in terms of regulations, because it'll start giving you the exceptions, right? For this one, still they'll kind of outline the fact that it's available. For here in this state, what it will do is outline exceptions. Where you get into the thick of it is how do you establish that you fit into one of those exceptions? That's where the sticky part is for the states that regulate it heavily, because let's say they say you can have up to so many weeks in certain circumstances, right? You have to have those circumstances verified before that timeline's out by someone who can verify it to know that you won't be in any type of legal liability for the doctor kind of thing. So by the time you go through all the proper steps, are you outside of that window? How soon are you going to know that you're pregnant in the first place, right? If you're a guy, it's like you might not know at all, right? If you're a girl, it's like, how long can it be? Well, it's crazy, right? Some people will know less than a week because they'll start getting nauseous. Some people it'll be a couple weeks with the first missed cycle. Some people don't have regular cycles. They might not know until, hey, I'm feeling funny, right? Every year, how many people give birth who never knew that they were even pregnant? That happens. It's crazy. That really irritates me. So what I wanted to show you were the exceptions, because in some of these it will actually outline things like prom and stuff like that. And it's like, is that really something we want to have an exception for? I don't know. This is the whole statute for murder, isn't it? Yes, it is. I don't want to read it. That sucks. Don't want to show you this. All right. I'll go back through that and I'll see if I can pull out the specific language, maybe for next time. All right. So that's a little about this guy, about that issue. You've seen some Idiocracy now. You might want to go watch the rest of it. It is hilarious. We're in that. Is there anything else in here I didn't show you? Forced surveillance, birth control, check your facts. I got more in here, but that's enough. That's enough of that. All right. Now we finally get into this. So we finally got causation, we talked about that, body crime elements. Here we go. Because here's where you start getting mistaken. Like, you can take those previous issues we talked about, abortion and physician-assisted suicides, and if we don't consider those an exception, it's like, where will they fall on this scale here? It's like types of murder: intent to kill, intent to inflict harm, depraved heart, intent to commit murder, or intent to commit felony, or murder for hire. It's like, think of it: purposefully, knowingly, recklessly, negligently, right? Premeditated. Which one would that be? Either one of those, physician assisted or abortion. What level of intent would you have to go get it? Would it be reckless? No, recklessness might get you into that situation. That'd be premeditated. You planned that out, right? You set up the appointment, you got up, went to it, that kind of thing. It's like, that's why you start getting into this issue. If it becomes something we're going to start regulating these criminal systems, like the level of punishment you get for that will be very, very extreme. So hopefully that pendulum doesn't swing that far that way. So I'm going to talk to you about each of those things. We're talking about simultaneously or sequentially. Or is there something else I want to talk about for the next 4 minutes? Actually, let's talk about lesser included offense, because I don't think I've talked about that. In law, typically statutes are written right. Scenario 1 requires A, B, C, D, whatever, however many elements that this needs for that specific statute. One's going to relate to act, one's going to relate to intent, one's going to relate to harm, one's going to relate to, the correlation between the two, or something else, or other things. Okay. Let's say purposeful, whatever. You can't establish intent at one of these levels. What ends up happening is you can find a lesser charge that doesn't have the same level here. Murder versus negligent homicide versus manslaughter. And it's like, that's what we're talking about there. All of those, you get changes here and here. So then, if you get the most serious crime, the less serious crimes that built up to that more serious crime can also be included depending on how the statutes are written in that specific state. So like, you go up for capital murder in Arkansas, that's where you're committing a felony. You're committing a felony and a murder occurs, right? Automatic, your life or death. Those are your choices there, right? I'm gonna offer that one. I'm gonna offer first degree murder, maybe. Do I include the lesser included offenses where I could include murder in the second degree, or maybe manslaughter, those types of charges? Maybe yes, maybe no. Some states will have it written to where you have to. Some states it's up to the prosecutor, right? And so it's like, I can choose to overcharge you. I'm not going to offer the lesser charge because I think I'll get a conviction. And now I'm going to stick you with the hardest situation to get, right? That's how that can work. Typically what ends up happening to juries though is as they're trying to decide this, they can't quite get there for whatever reason, they've got lesser options, right? If it's a psychological barrier preventing them from, giving this person this sentence, because guess what? You're looking at somewhere between, 30 and 50 years in prison, or maybe the life in prison without parole. It's like, some people will stop and pause just on that. You give them this option or this option, like, go with that one. What happens next after you make that conviction again? You guys know who has that conviction? You'll go back and out there, and now you find out everything about the person, what that person's actually done. Then you get the sentence. You got enough overlap between these two, you get someone who pleads down, you can still give them a sentence like this, right? Same thing for murder. This state doesn't have a separate felony murder, capital murder sentence. It's just one of those that falls into the first degree of murder. But they did have a capital murder. Arkansas does. It has those two options, life or death, right? First degree murder has life in prison without possible parole, death, or however many numbers of years. I see it's some variation. Very, very common that every time that they charge with felony murder, they'll have murder in the first on the docket too. Probably murder in the second, just in case they can't quite get there, right? What functional difference? Well, if they got it all the way down to 2, some options go off the table. If the jury decides first, you still have the death penalty on the table. You still have life in prison on the table. So you got a lot of room to tailor it. Oh shit, there was one more thing I want to tell you before I leave you here today. I did see some popular news as it relates to criminal court systems, and that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll show you that next time. It's one of those things that's like, when I start talking about popular society, they get stuff wrong a lot. One of the things why I talk about the stuff in here, because I want to make sure that you hear it. It's not right. This is a misinterpretation. It's either a purposeful lie to manipulate, or it's an accident. Yeah. But we'll talk about that next week. Have a great day. Oh, and one last bit of news. No class Wednesday. I'm gonna be a little on. So, no class Wednesday. I'll see you Monday. Bye. That's there. There we go.